Incoming.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to From the Bunker. I'm your host, Eli, today, and we have an awesome guest, Stephen Graham, the writer, producer, director, and lead actor in the movie Sheepdog, which just recently came out, which is going over veterans and our transition from what we've recently been going through in the global war on terrorism, and even some more than that. And a decade-long project here for Steven putting this together. And I saw it in the theater about a month ago. I rewatched it at my home as well. And I have to say that it really tugs deep down at exactly what it feels like. I can't relate to every single scene in the movie, but there's several I can. And I know other parts. I have brothers and sisters who definitely can. And Steven, I want to say, first of all, um, very thankful you made this movie. We'll go over some things, my wife's reactions and, of course mine and everything. And just thank you so much for making this movie and spending time with us here today.
Oh, no, it was my honor and my privilege, my pleasure. Yeah, the Sheepdog was a 14-year journey to the screen, and it was a worthy one. And we said from the very beginning we'd complete the mission or die trying. So I'm just grateful that I'm sitting here with you and we completed the mission.
Man, I can feel pretty much exactly the same about what we're doing at Bunker Bros with building the Bunker app
Mhm.
right now. And we'll definitely get into why what you're doing and have done is, fully aligns with what we have going on here. And I'm just really excited to get into this conversation. So, um, yeah, tell us about your journey through, working in the film industry and building up this movie over the years.
Yeah, so I began my career, as a filmmaker initially. I mean, I started out on the stage. Uh, I went to theater school, and then I began to explore filmmaking. Um, as I sort of in tandem with my professional acting career, where I was making short films and really trying to understand the technical aspect of filmmaking outside of just the storytelling aspect of the writing and so on. So, um, Sheepdog, it was a 15-year journey now to the screen, and it all began in 2011 when my car broke down 3 hours north of Los Angeles, and I called a local tow truck driver, and he came and picked me up and was like, "Saddle up." We got a long haul into town, and it was just during that drive back into Los Angeles, back home, that he began to open up about his life, the challenges that he was facing in his marriage, uh, the responsibilities of being a father of three, financial hardship, and then he opened up about all the medications that he was on that were tethered to his traumatic brain injury and his post traumatic stress from his deployments.
Hmm.
Um, and throughout this conversation, he just kept telling me, I can't believe I'm telling you this. I haven't told anybody. I haven't told my wife. I haven't told a therapist. And when he got me home to LA, I thanked him, and I feel like that was the seminal moment. I felt it wasn't just a sense of curiosity; it was a sense of responsibility,
Hmm.
because I was confused. I wondered, how could somebody who had served their country honorably, have a wife and children, working his butt off to pay his bills, feel so disconnected in his experience from his community, from perhaps his battle buddies, his own
Yeah.
family. And so I set out that summer of 2011, on a nationwide road trip to uncover that truth, to find out if there were more men and women like this tow truck driver. And sure enough, I found out very quickly that indeed there were.
Yeah. That is that's crazy. I feel like there was me personally hearing that story, and I heard it on a previous podcast you had done, and I think there's something larger at work that said, "Hey, like you need to go do this." And I feel like it
Yeah.
it came to fruition in exactly the right way, and you could tell that you did this with a lot of intention to tell a real story and not just some Hollywood movie about it. Like, this is real when I watch it, you know?
Yeah, and that was, that was the commitment that that I had made from the very beginning. That I knew that, I didn't know right away I was writing a screenplay. I was just journaling about it, and
Uh-huh.
it was around that time. It was like about a month after that my car breaking down that I did a film with Matt Dallas. I did a western, and I met him on it, and I told him about this experience that I'd had,
Mhm.
and I told him I think I'm going to go out on the road this summer and just find out if there's more men and women, like the tow truck driver. And after about a month of doing the film with Matt, and we're about to wrap, and I said, "Listen, like, if this becomes a screenplay, I think you should play my best friend in it."
Mhm.
And but there's one caveat: you have to go on the road with me to see this for yourself, to see what it is.
Mhm.
And sure enough, he did. And from the very first veteran that we met in McAllen, Texas, Staff Sergeant George Rice, it became very personal very quick.
Wow. That's awesome. That's man, when you talk about that, I could see why when you guys interact in the movie, it literally makes me feel like it's me and my friends and why you're
Mhm,
so tight because you're like, "Hey, we have to do
mhm,
this journey together." That's
mhm,
so awesome, man. That's great. Um, one of the first things I noticed in the movie, and you just talked about it in your first experience that led you to make this was,
mhm,
like the medications that he has on the shelf. And, eventually he goes like, "Hey, I'm tired of these," and he gets rid of them. But it leads to this concoction, that, it goes into like one of the opening scenes, um, which kind of leads the movie where it goes. But I could say I've personally seen friends that I've served with who were on all these meds, and they're treating the symptom instead of the cause, which the movie gets into, which I thought was, I mean, it was just so in depth. It really captured the entire experience from the beginning to end of what it's like to be a veteran who's especially served overseas, in, the recent wars. And, that was just, I was like, I've literally seen that before, and it's so sad. I've seen it end army careers, people who are still in, and they're just throwing meds at them. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd seen that firsthand, and you know, and I've um seen every version of it.
Mhm.
I've sat in front of people that were on 17 different medications, for
Wow.
various things. Uh, I've seen firsthand padded manila envelopes coming to a veteran's house and them shaking it like a maraca to see that familiar sound of
Mhm.
they got their meds. And look, I'm not here to provide an opinion on. I'm not a doctor, and I certainly don't have a medical background, and I wouldn't do that. I just wanted to hold the mirror up to what I was seeing. And
Mhm.
look, there are medications that do help a lot of people. um there's also, um I think there's a gap in the care that we're providing that doesn't focus more on the actual issue. Or um I think we're very quick in this day and age to provide pharmaceuticals out of the gate,
Mhm.
without truly understanding what's happening or exploring other forms of care, whether that's equine, whether that's like, you know, um, a connective tissue to your community. Just having a
Mhm.
support system could help you emotionally or mentally, or,
Yeah.
getting involved, feeling a sense of purpose, waking up in the morning and having that why of the job you're going to. Right? I mean,
Yep.
there's just so many things, just down to fitness, your appetite, the food you're eating. I mean, there's just so many things, and I get it. It's a system under so much strain, right? To
Mhm.
be able to give, and we address this in the film, to be able to provide the one-on-one care that each individual deserves and has earned through
Mhm.
their service. And I think that that is a growing challenge. Um, I'd also offer that, there's currently 5 to 7 million veterans right now that have not accessed their VA care.
Mhm.
And we know with the veteran suicide epidemic, I believe the number is about 66% of our veteran suicides across all generations of conflicts and veteran, 66% of those veterans in that unfortunate statistic have not accessed their care.
Yeah.
Not every veteran has trauma. You know that. Not every
Yep.
veteran has been deployed. We're not painting with a broad brush here. What we're saying is that VA care that you've earned is also um, your tether to a community.
Yeah.
Access the care. It could come in so many different forms. We're not talking, get you in there to be diagnosed for something or pharmaceuticals. It's taking that first step and walking through the door and
Yeah.
accessing your care and becoming a part of a community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I could say just being real right now, like, I talked about it a lot on our show before, but
Hmm.
I've been home for this summer will be 3 years, so, 2.5 years from my last deployment, and I just recently retired,
Hmm.
and, uh, I recently got diagnosed with PTSD, and I went to the VA, and I said, you know, "Hey, this is what's going on," and so they gave me an initial diagnosis of, like, anxiety and transition disorder, and then they got upgraded, but it was really cool because there's, like, different levels of options. You don't have to walk in the door and get pills right at you. Like, I think they keep evolving, and it's pretty good, and one thing, not to sidetrack, it's related, but, like, one scene in the movie where, Whitney, writes the father-in-law, he's like, "We didn't have" they just called it shell shock when I came home from Vietnam, and we didn't have all these programs, and, like, yeah, there's a long way to go, but it's also come
Hmm.
a long way, and I
Hmm.
was able to just get peer counseling from a fellow combat veteran, and it just made me feel better to talk to someone. And, that's a big reason, like you were saying, that connective tissue of community and why we're building the Bunker app so you can find other veterans near you, find your resources, whether it's an equine program, a program like Shields and Stripes, where they go through your diet, they give you physical training, they give you mental training, and help you deal with all these different things. There's so many great veteran nonprofits out there that are doing great work. And we want to help everyone find all those resources while also finding
Hmm.
someone you can talk to near you because just talking to him, because, I've lived in my town for 4 years and I'm just starting to meet some veterans and things like that. But people, for whatever reason, I'm about to turn 40, but my generation getting older and everyone, less of us are going and spending time at a bar at a VSO. Like, I enjoy that, but I kind of grew up with my dad who was a, American Legion guy doing all that. But for whatever reason, my generation doesn't do that as much. So we
Yeah, and
said,
I think
"Hey."
that
Yeah.
that's on the VFW and the American Legion. I think I've walked into many across the country, and
Mhm.
I've heard it from the younger generation of like, I don't want to go in there and be about around a bunch of drunks and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. And I totally understand that. But if you've actually walked into them, they're not. uh, I think they need I think they have a rebranding issue. That's what
Yeah.
because you could walk into them and there's like folks playing pool, having a soda,
Mhm.
or playing cards, or just people just fellowshipping, just talking about their day. I mean, you can go in. You were talking before we got on here about coming from church. I mean, I've been into
Mhm.
them literally where a group have come from church and just sat down, had a cup of coffee, and we're just kind of unpacking the week that they just had before them and planning
Yeah.
for the week ahead. And I think that the bigger thing is it's really hard, and this is only from the experience I've had as a civilian in this community.
Mhm.
But I see it like it's hard for a lot of veterans, especially those that have been deployed or certainly been in combat to connect with civilians,
Yeah.
because their experience is very unique to them, and I understand that wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
And just from doing honor flight out of Austin, Texas over the years and seeing the younger generation veteran connecting with the older generation, whether it's like a Vietnam veteran or a World War II veteran.
Mhm.
Um, and there's typically a mutual respect,
Yeah.
and there's typically a side hand that comes with it that's like a respect that's already there, you know? And there's
Mhm.
something beautiful to witness, and it doesn't take but a couple hours to see them all ripping on each other,
Yeah.
like they're brothers or sisters.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing. So I don't know. I mean, I get that, but I think that I definitely think that the stigma needs to be lifted on those places, because those are truly right now our modern day sweat lodge, you
Mhm.
know, and for our warriors.
Yeah.
And I think that more funding needs to go into them. More
Mhm.
funding needs to go into them, to make them make them a more desirable place to visit for those that aren't, to be around those that have walked a mile in their shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, well, so one talking about how, like, veterans, don't always fit in with all the civilians around them and stuff,
Hmm.
in a lot of different ways. One thing, and this kinda goes back to, a mentor of mine who has been in the veteran transition space for a while, and he's a Marine Corps veteran, and he talks about, like, your critical mind and how your critical mind is trained through all these years in the military and deployments and all that stuff. And I think one way that showed up pretty early on in the movie is when Calvin goes in and he starts getting assessed because he's gonna have to remember what is said to him. And the guy goes, "All right, so you're like a factory worker or whatever it is, and you work for $10 an hour." And he's like, $10 an hour? Stop. Like, that guy's getting fleeced or whatever he says it.
Hmm.
And I laughed pretty hard, and my wife looked at me when we were watching it. So, like, that's you're just like, just stop. Like, I don't care what the point of this is. That's BS. I thought that was really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, because he's kind of like he's it's just an exercise for memory,
Yeah.
and to him, it just like hits a chord right out of the gate that, like, how old is this test that we're doing? This guy's being exploited for $10 an hour, you know?
Yeah.
But I in my research, I went through those tests. I
Oh, you
went through
did?
all. Yeah, I sure did. I worked at the
Wow.
VA. I volunteered, I should say, at the VA Medical Center in Detroit. And yeah, yeah, I went through all the cognitive tests for memory. Um I mean, there was a longer montage in the film, and in the rough cut of the film that actually, that I cut just
Mhm.
for timing and for pacing, where my character goes through many more different tests, and I felt
Okay.
like we really needed to get into Knox's office,
Mhm.
to really get our story going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was very eye opening to do them.
Yeah,
Mhm,
that's crazy that you went through that. I say
mhm,
every section of this movie I could see, like, it was very on
mhm.
purpose, and so that definitely
Yeah,
shows. But, and then once you get into, like, meeting Dr. Knox and everything, in the movie, I liked how one of the lines you said was like, "Hey, I'm gonna need emotional collateral from you." And I really felt that because, I was telling you I've been to the VA before, and it could be any doctor's office, let's be real. I'm not talking crap, and I'm also not trying to save the VA, but
mhm.
I've been in a VA where someone was, like, getting my information and didn't even, like, look up at me. They were just doing their thing. And then, um, feeling like you're cared about makes a huge difference. If I go into civilian doctor, like, cause I don't really use the VA that much, um, how they treat me doesn't really matter that much to me for whatever reason, like, "Okay, cool, whatever, I went to the doctor." But for whatever reason, when I go in the VA, it gets personal. I find that very
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
about myself.
Yeah, and I think in our film, for at that part of the film, my character, um as you can understand, I mean, you know this yourself going through this process as a veteran that, understandably is trust issues to say, like, he's already said to her, "What do you know about what it's like to be in combat?" You read
Yeah.
it in a book,
Yeah.
right? You have no comprehension of
Mhm.
what it's actually like. And so in that scene, he's at a line to say that, but understandably, we can all appreciate that given the circumstances that he would want that. Like, why am
Mm.
I going to open up to you and tell you the most intimate details of combat when I don't know anything about you?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
for sure. And I think
Mm,
most people are normally gonna have to that's a hurdle they're gonna have to get over to get through counseling if you've been through
mhm,
combat. Like, and it's
mhm.
a natural reaction.
Yeah.
And she even talks about some of that stuff, like all these things you're doing is all natural. I mean, combat's been happening since the beginning
Mhm,
of time. Uh, I think where there's some differences, and like going back to that conversation with Whitney when he's like, "Hey, they called it shell shock back then." I always think about I wonder what it was like in the different times of being a combat veteran and the different conflicts. Like in World War One and Two, the entire country is invested. Everyone's getting drafted. You're rationing things. Like everyone is invested in this together. Someone down the streets probably lost their life. Like every community
yeah,
is touched. Then you fast forward to Vietnam, Korea. I don't think there was rationing and things, but it's still the draft. Everyone's touched. You get to Vietnam, there's still the draft. Everyone's touched. But now there's this new thing where like people are wondering if this is a just war. And then, people like my uncle who did 2 tours in Vietnam in the Navy doing, patrol boats up the river, seeing all kinds of combat, come home and they're getting spit on. You don't even wanna wear your uniform. And I feel like that generation didn't let that happen to us, and I don't think our country felt the same anyways, but it like, I can't imagine what that felt like.
mhm,
And then but you still have the draft, everyone's involved. Now we get to 20 years of the global war on terrorism, it's very
mhm,
different where it's I went 4 times, I know people who've gone 7 times, way more than that, like, same people going over and over, and it wasn't like the previous wars where you go do a tour, come back, and then that's it. Like,
mhm,
you're going over and over, and I'm curious what that has done to my generation psychologically, even though we have way better support at home than before. So it's very like not everyone has been touched by these conflicts like previous. So
mhm.
it's kind of interesting to think about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but but then I could see where Whitney's the only person who can initially really get to Calvin and push those buttons to get him moving forward because he's a Vietnam vet. And he's got that respect like you talked about in those honor fights. Like he has the street cred to get him to open up.
yeah. I think also because both of these men, Whitney doesn't realize out of the gate, uh, as they're getting to know each other, that much of which he's gone through, my character Calvin could relate so much with. They're just
Hmm.
different eras.
Yeah.
And that's why he says our pain is relative.
Yeah.
From the cosmonaut who's breached the unknown to the warrior on the battlefield with a 1,000-yard stare. Our pain
Hmm.
is relative. And he's obviously a very integral uh, person in Calvin's life, integral to his path, Calvin's path to
Hmm.
post traumatic growth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that that gets talked about towards the end about post traumatic growth and
Mm,
the amount of things that Calvin overcomes in this movie, in this short film is like absolutely just heartbreaking and heavy. But I like that it shows like I always try to tell people, and I've said it several times on our show, like as a veteran, you need to remember where you came from and what you're capable of and what you've been trained to do and handle. And I know it's harder when you don't have people with those shared suffering, like you're going through with it together
Mhm.
when you're serving, but like you could still do it. And you know, we're going to continue to build that community so you have more people alongside you even when you get out. But you know, I think it's important to remember that, and I think Whitney's a big part of that, especially with the speech he gives when Calvin's like sitting there one night with the 1,000-yard stare, wondering if like this is it and there's anything worth living for. Um, which I think, you know, we'll talk and we'll try to work that into the podcast. But like, I would really like to get into how you felt about putting that and how that all came about into the movie, because that was the biggest part of the movie to me personally.
Yeah, so, you know, I've lost a lot of guys on this journey that in my research that are no longer with us,
Hmm.
and, um, and that had fought a really hard fight through their trauma, through their pain, and, um, and I always, wanted, man, if there was just somebody there, man, if just could they, and maybe just keep them alive for one more day. And I know what that's like too, because I've been on the other end of that phone and I've been the last phone call
Hmm.
to try to, try to talk somebody off a ledge. And oftentimes you don't get that phone call.
Yeah.
You usually get a text message from your circle of folks that you know that knew that individual. And it's usually just their name. And we all know what that means.
Yeah.
So in this, the stakes are really high for Calvin. And I wanted, Whitney is a Vietnam veteran who had seen the 1,000-yard stare, who knew exactly what this is and was from his own
Hmm.
experience. And and of course, Fondy Curtis Hall's delivery of, what I wrote in the screenplay is just nothing short of profound. And
Yeah.
it's just so moving. And everything he says is just so truthful to the experience of a warrior.
Yeah.
To say, you know, um, to acknowledge and to see it and know exactly what it is that's going on, and know exactly how high the stakes are.
Yeah.
And I'm it's such a critical scene in the film, and so many people have come up to me, especially since it's been in theaters and over the last year at the film festival circuit. So many veterans, especially the younger and older generation veteran, but to be like, you know, um, that was the perfect way to articulate what it is when you get to that place, if you've gotten there.
Hmm.
And I appreciate that because that was what I experienced in my research doing the film.
Yeah.
That I'd heard similar words over the phone, and and been that person on the other end. So I appreciate you saying that, because I hope that every veteran that sees the film, or every family member of a veteran, you know, is touched by that, and feels a sense of feels like they're seen and heard, you
Yeah.
know, in
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Hmm.
That is the only movie I've ever watched that I felt literally made me feel that way. That's an
Yeah,
exactly
I
perfect way to
appreciate that.
describe it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, um, it's like so cool for me to talk to you about this movie because it's so good. Like, um, I don't buy movies very often, but I bought this one,
Oh,
and
wow. Well, thank you.
nobody does that anymore.
You
But
know what's an interesting thing is that a lot of people that have bought it, or people that saw it in the theater and then watched it at home, have said, that have reached out over, the last couple months, have said, "Oh my god, I'm discovering more in the story that I didn't see before."
yeah.
And that's really cool, because it's amazing to be able to revisit it and see a part of the storyline, because I spent years layering the storyline, like
Hmm.
trying to make it palatable so it's
Yeah.
entertaining and moving, but I was very judicious with my cuts and
Hmm.
how I structured the story, so that it was multiple woven subplots as well that would
Yeah.
keep you interested, because the idea is you do not need to serve in the military to relate to anything in this film.
Yeah, life can
This is
just
a
be
film
like
that
that.
speaks to our humanity, you
Mhm.
know, and to our challenges and to our triumphs, um, adapting, overcoming, our sense of community, our sense of family, our sense of faith, you
Mhm.
know? And that was something that I just wasn't seeing, certainly not in the films that have attempted to handle post traumatic stress. And of course, we're the first film that takes it further to inspire folks towards the path of post traumatic growth.
Yeah. And it and, when, like, the concept of, like, you have to push through, I really
Mhm.
liked that, especially because Whitney plays a Marine vet, and I served in the Marine Corps first, and in the Marine Corps, it's a very, we're very aggressive in our tactics, and it's like, over history, it's really worked out, but, I mean, you gotta push through really hard things, uh, and where you talk about, like, sometimes what you have to fall apart to pick your pieces back up or how
Oh
what the s
boy, boy, yeah, yeah. Let me do the quoting. Oh
Yeah, yeah,
boy,
yeah, you gotta get the
no.
quotes down.
Sometimes it's right behind me here.
Yeah,
Sometimes we have to fall apart to find ourselves all over again. But my
yeah,
character actually says something to Virginia Madsen's character, who plays my trauma therapist, that he discovers that the only way out of this
it's
is
through it.
through.
Yeah,
Is through. And that's a hard reality. Because
yeah,
like once you know that there's no corner you can cut, you just
mhm,
gotta soldier on. You just gotta power through
yeah,
to get through that. And I thought that, man, wasn't that the metaphor for this 15-year journey to make the movie,
yeah,
between the research and the development of it, and the start stops and picking up all the pieces to put something back together again when you lost financing, and
mhm,
all that stuff that I learned firsthand, that it's just you either quit or you push through.
yeah, and I like that message in the fact that, like I said, like, you have to attack the objective, get through it, and complete the mission, and your mission is to continue on in life for yourself and your family and whoever you're
100%.
surrounded with, and, like,
Amen.
yeah, so I just nailed it, man, and, like, the other quote, which we went over so I don't mess this one up, was,
Mhm.
"You are willing to give your life for your country, why don't you try living for it?" When Doctor
Yeah,
Knox says that, I was
very
like,
good.
"Dude, that's so good." That's another good
Yeah,
one.
because from a civilian standpoint, um, that's a big deal. You're
Yeah,
willing to give your life for your country. You don't get to choose the conflicts you're sent into,
right.
right? You could be in a foreign country, in a foreign conflict, with people that don't look like you, don't sound like you. You
Mhm.
don't know what's up or down. You just have your muscle memory from all your training.
Yeah,
And you want to get, you're there to do the job that you were trained to do. You want to get home to your family. And I don't think, just in my research again, I don't think people that we've had the luxury of an all volunteer military. You addressed this at the beginning of the show, of not having to be touched by that. And thank God there's not a hearse coming down every street
yeah,
in our country right now. And you're like, oh, well, looks like Timmy didn't make it back.
yeah,
You know, you have a lethal, fully effective, the most powerful military in the world, um,
yeah,
with people that love their country and
mhm,
families that love their country. Because it's not just the sacrifice of just the individual who enlists. It's, as you
yeah,
know, it's the ripple effect to the families, right?
yeah,
Who, like, and I know this marrying into a military family. When you're deployed, that 9 months period is stressful for the
mhm,
family as well, you
yeah,
know, especially if there's casualties, and trying to figure out where, who, waiting for that intel to come in. And then you factor in kids to that, young children. And
Yeah.
The time I spent with Gold Star families, forever changed my life of the ultimate sacrifice that
Mhm.
is made. And it's extremely humbling.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to transition into, I wanted to get into my wife's comments on the movie
Sure.
and talk about, like, uh I mean, we can get it like look at caregivers of like our wounded brothers and sisters and those families, like the weight the family has to carry. And there's groups like the Independence Fund that are helping because you
Mhm,
can get a stipend from the government, which is a great change over the years, right? But
mhm,
it's not really enough. Maybe you can
mhm,
eat, you know what I mean?
mhm.
But to be a caregiver, but other organizations come in and help out like them and I mean, the burden of war and combat over centuries, it hits everyone, like you said. And for my story, my wife, we met later on in my military career, but she spent my last 7 of my 21 years in it with me. Um, and we did one deployment, and we had, my second son was about 7 months old when I left, and it was our first son together. And so we had to go through that, and she was strong, man. She was great but with the technology, there's all these different things going on. Like my first deployment, like almost 20 years prior, right? Uh, you had a satellite phone call maybe every couple weeks for like 10 minutes,
Mhm.
regular mail, and that's pretty much it. Maybe you'd get another phone call sometimes if you go to a main base, but and now this last one, when I came home, my son's a year and a half, he kinda recognized me because I could get on Signal chat and, like, and
Yeah,
video call him,
yeah,
but then you have these periods where you have blackouts and you can't tell anyone why or anything, and then you could just go dark on your family,
yeah,
and I prepped her really well for that, she handled it great. I was like, "Hey, I'm back," I couldn't talk for a while, but she's seen all that with me, but I also, I started a different nonprofit than Bunker Bros with some friends 10 years ago called All American Riders. And, we're a whole bunch of veterans who ride motorcycles together and help out our brothers and sisters. And moving away from them and living without them has been tough for me because I moved to a different state. But my wife got to see my interactions with all my veteran brothers and sisters and like you and what's Matt Dallas's character's name in the film?
Daryl.
Daryl. Like, the way you guys interact and talk smack, like, even when bad things are happening
Mhm,
and that whole dynamic, right? She's lived that, seen my brothers and sisters, and a lot of them have seen combat as well and their struggles, and then
mhm,
to see me go through my last deployment and come back different,
mhm.
where in the film, they say, like, your wife in the film's like, "You were replaced, you're not the same person." I haven't been at that level, right? But there's been some changes.
Mhm.
So, um, I was excited to bring her to see this, right? And not having,
Mm.
I didn't get to see it first without her. So it was initial reaction. So we talked prior to this. I said, "Hey, I want to read this one live to you and see how you feel about it." Cause I'm sure you've heard all kinds of stuff, but
Sure.
here's my wife's reaction when we saw Sheepdog in the theater. When my husband asked me to go see a movie about veterans and their struggles, I wasn't really keen since I live that reality already, but I reluctantly went. As I sat there and watched, the lump in my throat started to get bigger and bigger, and then the tears started streaming down my cheeks, and I didn't really stop the entire time. The film very clearly depicts the struggle of transitioning from service to civilian and the lack of support many vets face. I saw my husband in the film, his friends, and myself. There's so much more to our marriage than most being a military family, so many layers and struggles that our civilian friends just wouldn't understand. Sheepdog justified the struggle for me, justified the anger that comes with it and the blessings. That's what she had to say.
Wow. Wow. I'm humbled. that's a testament to all the men and women in uniform and all the mental health workers and Gold Star families, first responders, and then the military spouses and, the
Mhm.
communities that trusted us with their stories to put up on the screen. So thank you. Wow.
Yeah. So like I said, I have a lot of the same feelings as her. Like it justified like
Hmm.
how I feel. Like there's a film out there that understands me. So I highly encourage everyone watching and listening to go see this film and bring your family that's mature enough to handle it. Don't bring your children, I wouldn't say, but the bring your spouse especially and just um yeah, it was great. It was kind of like a therapeutic movie for me.
Well, I
So,
appreciate you saying that because, yeah, we've heard that a lot over the last year since we started screening it in theaters. And then, of course, we just made the transition to streaming. So, veterans, especially those that were apprehensive to see it in a public forum, like being
mhm,
in a movie theater with 200 strangers, you can now see Sheepdog in the comfort and privacy of your home. So, it's playing on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Spectrum, Comcast, Fandango, YouTube movies. So it's out there now, and it's amazing, and it's amazing how much it's transcending, and
mhm,
that's why we made the film. Like, people often ask me on a 15-year journey, what was the hardest part? Of course, raising the funds. Of course, all the years of writing the script and rewrites and all of that stuff for sure. But
mhm,
the hardest part was getting it right for people like you and for people like your wife.
yeah,
Because one false note in the movie, it's a house of cards.
yeah,
And it was so important. And I just, for the men and women in uniform that trusted us, um, they were our North Star.
mhm,
They led us home, in
yeah,
terms of what the story was gonna look like and sound like and just be in its essence. And
mhm,
without them, and this film, Sheepdog, was made entirely outside of the Hollywood system.
uh-huh, wow,
So there's no sanitization of the story. There's no, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this character does this? And you're like, but that's not justified. I never saw that in my research. And,
yeah,
taking these sort of artistic liberties that, change sort of the or affect the honesty and authenticity of the film. And
yeah,
we weren't prepared to do that, and we didn't have to. And I think that i- speaks volumes of why the film is connecting the way it has been. So we're just so incredibly grateful. But I'll
dude,
also say really quickly, if anyone that's listening, so if you go to sheepdogthemovie.com, there's links to any which way you could possibly watch it at home.
mhm,
You can also sign up for updates. We do giveaways here and there. There's promotional stuff that's interesting and exciting. And of course, we're very interactive on social media. So if you drop us a comment or direct message, we're very interactive, and we are very grateful and honored to continue to grow our Sheepdog the Movie family.
yeah. I would just like to say that a lot of people set out to do something and maybe don't quite nail it, but like you didn't allow any of that other stuff in your movie and you just did it what it is and let it be, and it totally shows, and like you said, it would have been a house of cards, and you just absolutely delivered. I hope you're very proud of that. I know, you know, I just thank you so much for making this film, and there's so much going on in our country with people trying to do the right thing, and where does there's a lot of money been spent on veteran transition and veteran suicide and like, um, we wanna be like you guys at Sheepdog, and we're on that mission right now, and to see that you guys succeed and actually make a difference and do the right thing to to make it to make a change in the veteran community, and that's what we wanna do is end veteran isolation with the Bunker app. So Also, check us out at bunker-bros.com. And, we're a nonprofit. Anyone can donate, and we're on the same mission as you, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you so much. And I hopefully you've heard that a lot, and I guarantee you everyone means it more than you'll ever know. So really appreciate you,
Ah,
man.
man. Thanks, brother. It's been an honor. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And for anyone listening, just know that you matter. And as we say in the film, if you are struggling, it's okay to not be okay. You
Amen.
know, amen. All right. God bless. And thank you. Keep going, brother. Keep going.
All right. Thank you.
Incoming, incoming, incoming.